Airy's views of isostasy. George Biddle Airy was the British mathematician and astronomer. He proposed his theory on isostasy in 1855. He proposed his concept on the basis of three criteria. First one is the Earth crust is rigid and it floats on the heavier asthenosphere. Second one is the crust has a uniform density. And third one is the shell is lighter and it floats on the heavier shima. Airy's theory is popularly known as the theory of isostasy. Basically, the core concept of air is based on the law of flotation, just like a boat on the river, ship on the ocean. The weight of the floated body just equal to the weight of the liquid displaced by its immersed path. This principle is basically based on the Archimedes principle of buoyancy and the Pascal principle. The Pascal principle is just like that. Pascal law stated that the principle of transmission of liquid by the pressure. Very lucidly, it explained if the pressure applied to a single point, it's a single point, then the liquid or the pressure as well as the pressure transmitted in all direction. In all direction. This is the basic principle of Pascal law. Another one we are very familiar, that is the Archimedes principle. Uh, if any object, whether it fully or partially submerged in a liquid, it is acted a upward pressure, that is the upward pressure of buoyant force that equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by the object. Basically, Airy's concept based on the Archimedes principle and the Pascal principle of transmission of liquid. On the basis of these two principles, a modern theory, that is the purely hydrostatic principle or hydrostatic theory, that is the hydrostatic law, describe how the pressure increases with the depth of the fluid. On the basis of three principles, the Airy's concept of isostasy follows all these three attributes. These columns are the replica of the earth crust. When we are talking about hill or mountain or plateau or plain, all are depends on its average height. Suppose this is hill, replica of hill, this is replica of plateau and plain. Those are indifferent in average height and in mass. But according to Airy's concept, those are the crustal block and all crustal block have an uniform density. And if the block with different height and different mass and with the uniform density float on a liquid, then what will be the result? According to the theory, all blocks try to adjust and try to maintain a balance within the liquid, and that balancing line will be a curved line. That is the justification of Airy's views, that is the uniform density but varying depth. Uniform density of whom? All crustal block, all the CL material have an uniform density. But due to the Pascal law or the law of flotation, but they are adjusted in a substratum, adjusted in a asthenosphere with the varying depth. Because of here, I would like to mention one thing. Higher the column have higher the height and higher the mass, but all have same density. Higher the column and higher the mass, they have an more projection in substrata. So higher the column have a higher the root, shallower the column have a shallower the root. The basic principle behind this fact is higher, different height and different mass, but uniform density. That's why Airy's concept is popularly known as a root theory. Therefore, it is justified that uniform density of crustal block and varying thickness and varying curve line of adjustment or line of balancing is a curve line. According to Airy, All the crustal block, that is Cl, have an uniform density throughout the Sima, have an uniform density, and throughout the asthenosphere there is also the uniform density. And these are the mountain, plateau, plain, and ocean floor. And due to the differing height and different mass, but the uniform due to uniform density, the mountain have a higher projection in substratum in compared to the plain. Higher the column have higher the root, and shallower the column have shallower the root. That is justified the anti-root concept of Airy. It's the Airy's experiment. He took 8 wooden blocks all in different height and different mass, but would have an uniform density. And a wooden blocks are the replica of Earth's surface with varying height and varying mass, but would within all wooden block have an uniform density. And water as a replica of substratum submerged into the water, and after a few minutes the all the wooden block try to adjust and try to float in the water, and then the adjustment line, just like a mirror image, just like a water image, higher the column, higher the wooden block, and higher projection, lower the wooden block have lower projection. And through this experiment of wooden block, Eddie tried to establish that his theory of isostasy, that is varying height, varying mass, but uniform density, that is the reason all the wooden block projected differently according to the height and mass. That is the basic concept of Airy's views of isostasy. It's the image of isostasy according to the Airy's views. When we are pronounced isostasy and pronounce the name of Airy, and simultaneously one name is very popular, that is the name or the theory of Heskinian of isostasy. But to some extent, sometimes we are confused that the Airy's and Heskinian theories of isostasy is totally same. No, up to some extent, it has a similarity with the Airy's views, and up to some extent, there is a similarities with the Pratt concept of isostasy. Airy's theory is an independent theory that is related to the root theory. Higher the column has higher the root, but Heskinian theory is an intermediate or the liaison theory in between the Airy's concept of isostasy and the Pratt's theory of isostasy.